if you're doing this because you heard about how much money you can make and all these things, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're going to have to fall in love with some other part of this. And it may be whatever you're really good in your corporate job, and you take it into your entrepreneurial space. But if it's just the zeros and the commas, then find something else to do.
What's up, everybody? It is Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost with our 100th episode of the Big Picture Blueprint, which means we've been doing this for about 2 years now. First, before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been listening for the past couple years. Dan and I have really enjoyed getting to host and do our own episodes, and it's one of our favorite parts of our businesses that we get to run is having these conversations. And today's conversation was definitely special and probably the most fun and best one we've had on the show ever. But Dan, how are you doing?
Yeah. I'm great, Mason. That was a lot of fun. It's really energizing to talk to a bunch of other people in the business and just know that they're dealing with a lot of the same crap that we are, but also there's a bright future ahead because I'd say many, if not all, these guys are ahead of us. So it was really, really encouraging.
Absolutely. And today we have 5 guests on our show, all of whom have been on the show before. So if you want to hear their individual episodes, go back, take a look. But we have Trevor Probandt, Justin Sliva, Logan Fullmer, Anthony Pappas, and Jon Jasniak for a land investor virtual roundtable. Hope you guys enjoy.
Something special today. So we have the Land Experts Roundtable, and the significance of this group is everybody is actively doing deals. These aren't people who once did deals and now just sell education. These are people who are in the trenches day in and day out. So we have Trevor Probandt, Jon Jasniak, and Anthony Pappas. Welcome, guys.
Appreciate having us up.
How's it going?
Everyone want to give a quick background for any listeners that don't know you on who you are, starting with Trevor?
Yeah, born and raised on a cattle ranch out in San Angelo, Texas, 3rd generation land investor, and we do a bunch of value add in Oklahoma and Texas. I think we bought and sold over 55,000 acres now. So,
Damn, that's a lot of land. My name is Jon Jasniak. Been doing it since early 2017, largely subdividing land development, mostly in Texas. Specializing in, similar to Trevor, value add, chopping up lots. Haven't done 55,000 acres, but I think it's about 10,000. Although Trevor does the larger ranches, I like the 1 to 10 acre lots.
So guys, Anthony Pappas, mainly out of Arizona. I do stuff a little bit different than Trevor and Jon, more focused infill lots and multifamily entitlement within major cities.
Biggest guy on campus right now. Even though you buy your deer antlers that you have behind you on Amazon for show. But to continue some of the conversation we had going before hitting record, what marketing channel is working right now in your business? What's not working, and what do you feel like is the best? And we just had Justin Sliva join us, so we'll have Justin quickly introduce himself and then add him into the mix of the conversation. Justin, if you want to do a quick 30-second spiel.
Awesome. Justin Sliva, land investor, fund manager, guy that likes to do stuff around raw dirt and have a fun time. Been buying and selling raw land since 2016. Have done anything from little cheap tax lots to big subdivides and all the flips in between. So that's a pretty quick rundown. Sorry for that. Just jumping in there.
No worries. It's like herding cats with all these land investors. But
yeah,
Trevor,
and congratulations on 100 episodes.
Yeah,
So,
glad to have you guys here. This is going to be a fun one. Hope the audience enjoys it. But Trevor, what marketing channels are working? What's not working? How are you guys getting deals today?
almost everything that we do, especially value add, is almost all broker relationships. On market stuff, we spend very little money on marketing. That's changed some with some cold calling in the past year or so, but that's more to build rapport into very tight, specific areas that we're doing higher density stuff, 1 acre lots in good places, things like that, like being very specific and targeted with it. But overall, the history of what we do and how we do it is almost all either word of mouth or making offers on market stuff or relationship with brokers.
And you're still getting deals, which is great to see. John, what about you?
Yeah, pretty much all on market on the MLS, a couple of broker relationships, like the one we just got done doing, the 76 lots in West Texas. Like an $8 million deal was kind of a pocket listing from a broker. So as you get to a certain level, you start to build those relationships. But I still see a ton of value all over the MLS, especially for the subdividing stuff. I think if you're a beginner and you're looking for just like a small $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 lot that you can buy and double your money, I see probably 3, 4, 5 of those a year just for the taking online. Like you get a beginner, a noob who posts it, it's like it's way too cheap. You can come in, scoop it up. I think direct mail, people are struggling with direct mail nowadays. The return is getting lower and lower. It's more and more competitive. Sellers getting dozens of letters. So I think maybe the new craze is SMS and cold calling, which I do very little to none of, but the MLS is definitely underrated.
Yeah. It seems like there's almost a direct correlation with how much effort and spend you have on marketing with how much, or maybe less on the back end on the sales side, where you need potentially more value add if it's posted to the masses. But Anthony, what about you? What are you doing right now? What's working? What's not working?
Cold calling's our bread and butter. It always has been. Every time I venture out of that realm, we find out how humbling other marketing strategies can be and how expensive they can be. Direct mail does well for us, but we've seen that we have to touch that same person 3 to 5 times to show that's how we stand out compared to a lot of other companies that hit them once and disappear. I've had people that have called me back 2 years later after mailer that like for lots that we really want, that we'll put them on like a cycle of every couple months, we'll send another one. And they'll like, and what we've seen is in the past, we used to slowly try to increase our offer. Now we'll hit like our maximum allowable offer and start pulling that number down. And that starts to encourage them to reach out like, hey, what's going on? You offered me 185 last year. Now you're offering me 170. I'm like, well, the market shifted. Interest rates are higher. The land market's softening. Looks like we're heading into a recession, depending on how the government handles this stagflationary period we're in. So we're having to hedge our bets. We've actually canceled a lot of contracts recently, just as the market shifted, and kind of paint that fear a little bit of where the market's heading. Obviously not lying, but we are trying to use the current market and the news cycles to our advantage. So anytime there's something bad in the news, we're definitely bringing that up. Like, well, how do you think this is going to happen? And here's the amount of active inventory for land in your area. Here's the average price and we're investors. We need to buy it at a discount. Some other stuff that's worked for us is going after stuff like the tax delinquency once it hits a Liz pendant stage. So as soon as the auction has been scheduled and there's that heavy pain point, has been really good for us. Obviously it's a little bit harder to do because it's a lot more legwork, scraping the data and doing all that kind of stuff, but that's been good too, because there's that pain point of someone has to sell. It's no longer, it's an investment, I'll sell for the right price. It's like, hey, if you don't do something, the county's going to own this in the next 30 days. So what do you want to do?
What about PPC? How's that working?
It's off to a slow start. All right. I'm giving it some time to work itself out. There's some, we've been running it for about 3 months. We've got a couple contracts signed. Nothing's closed yet, but it's a very expensive endeavor so far trying to make this thing work. And so we'll stay tuned. We'll circle back in a couple months and see if it was worthwhile.
There we go. And check the show notes for Anthony's affiliate link for his PPC ads he's running. Justin, what about you? What marketing channels are working on the acquisition side?
So I'm going to echo every one of these guys. We have used PPC this last year. It kind of saved us in a few deals. On market, like John talked about, there's no marketing cost to that. You just a little bit of sweat equity. We did 4 on market last year, 5 on market last year. This year we've done 3 so far that we pulled off market, and they're simple subdivides. You buy between a 40 and 60 acreage, split it up into 4 to 5 tracts, and then put it back on the market. What really was our big shift for that is the exit, being able to own or finance some of those smaller tracts, which helped us continue the throughput. Then we're still using direct mail. We have a 6-letter kind of regiment we do. It's letter, range letter, or neutral letter. Then it goes into postcards with either offer or no offer. We have different varying postcards that we go through there. So there's a stack that we run in that. And then they're also getting ringless voicemails on top of that, on top of the same list. For us, since we shop the same 200-mile radius, you'll see get inundated with mail coming in. Then they get the ringless voicemails, and they recognize the name, so you get some brand loyalty there. But then you have, as Jon said about having and Trevor has said as well, having the relationship with the brokers in the area, and you know what your exit's going to be. It does help that on market. They know who you are. They know what you're going to buy, and you're going to come with cash to close. So it does help kind of throughput that. So for us, it's been on market. It's been our direct mail, and then some PPC.
Sweet. And we just had Logan Fullmer join us. Logan, we just had an episode come out with you. So if people want to hear who you are, just go back and listen to that episode. But the question that we just asked is what is working in terms of marketing channels to go get deals, and what's not working?
First off, I'm going to apologize. Had a little bit of trouble this morning to get in, but we're here. So thanks for understanding. For us, marketing, we've been through a couple different phases early on. We went through a phase where we were sending offers. Like, we would basically do a mail merge and send out offers at 30 cents on the appraisal district dollar at one point in time. We also went through a phase where we were using cold callers. Outside of that, we've been direct call. We do pretty decent research, actually, and then direct call. And it's not VAs, it's people in our office, high-paid, well-trained salespeople. And I know it's a little more clunky, but our returns are different. We'll get 25 to 30 calls, or 25 to 30 property contacts, basically, will result in a deal. So we're having very highly targeted lists. And we figure out how to find these people. When you're buying a bulk list and skipping it and VA calling it, that's a very large volume approach. And it can work, definitely does with a lot of people, but we've chose to go the more laborious route. But the people we're getting are the people that other people miss. And that's why we're offering them pennies on the dollar, like literally pennies.
Yeah. Well, and I think in terms of the complexity of the deals, just in terms of resolving complex title issues, you'd probably take the cake with that versus some of the more simple on-market stuff that might have more value add. But what about social media? Trevor, I've seen your face pop up on my social media, I think advertising for the fund. I personally spent $30,000 advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and I got a total of 0 deals. And so that was more than, spending that much on mail, I would get a tremendous amount of deals. So how's social media working for you guys? And Justin, Trevor, whoever jump in on this one.
On the acquisition side, I do 0 with social media other than deal funding and partnering that away with the podcast and of that effect. So I'm not the guy on that one for you.
Yeah. And I was asking for more about the fundraising aspect of it in terms of raising investor capital.
On the investor capital, so we made another push. Our push right now is to $5 million in our note fund. We just crossed the $2 million threshold for note people wanting to sell notes and having that in the fund for us. Outside of that, we haven't put any more equity deals with the current interest rates and having to leverage some of the bank stuff. We've been kind of paused on that for right now. So our push has been the note fund, which has been good. We haven't missed a payment compared to a lot of syndicators in the apartment world. Right now, we're paying out just over $12,000 a month to investors with that $2 million piece, and we have soft commitments from 2 little home offices that are going to be $500,000 each. Will put us at $3 million. So our $5 million goal by the end of the year is looking promising, and that's coming from some social media touch, but it's been network plus social media plus they've tried us out for 6 months. And then they said, okay, hey, you took 100 for us. Now we're going to give you 300. Now we want to give you another $500,000. And so we're seeing that snowball starting to take place because they're starting to trust the fact that, hey, my apartment syndications, while I got the tax depreciation 2 years ago, they're not paying me now. And then they're asking for more money. They're asking for 70% increase in my investment to get 20% back when it all closes out in 2 years. So it's been nice to see the educated investor starting to realize, okay, hey, I may lose the tax depreciation up front, but I'm getting a consistent cash flow for it.
Good to know. So let's hit on the other side of the coin. We know where you're getting deals and what's working there, but what is driving your buyers right now? Amidst all the uncertainty Anthony was talking about, a lot of people have cold feet or staying on the sidelines. So the people that are buying your deals, what do they look like and what's ultimately driving them to buy even in the current environment?
Yeah, I mean, really, it depends on what you're going to be selling, right? Like we just had a gal that just bought a $400,000 lot that she wanted to retire on, and her whole deal is she wanted to feed the deer and be closer to her grandkids, right? Had another one that bought a whole bunch of one of our subdivides that we did just south of Fort Worth. They want to build their own deal with their whole family and everything, but he owns his own business. He does well, things like this. I mean, it's a mix and match, and obviously, like the owner finance piece, right, is a huge deal on that. To be able to bring that to the marketplace for a lot of people, like you're gonna have people that would just want dirt and want a getaway place that want to be able to retire on. Hopefully, the way everything is going, man, like affordable places that they can actually own before the end of the world that have low taxes. That's the true safe haven, and I think the ability for what people want, especially after all of the craziness and continued craziness that we have in this world. A little 5-10 acre, whatever it is, in southeast Oklahoma or Arizona or Central Texas or things like this, like they just want tranquility. They want to get away from all the craziness that the world just forced us right now. At least that's what I see, and that's when you talk to the actual buyers.
John, are you seeing something similar in your neck of the woods in Texas?
Yeah, I've started to kind of transition the business to more at scale. And so what I'm seeing is kind of the new American dream is people want to move outside the city and own affordable land with little to no restrictions. So that's what I'm hyper focused on. But I really started to think about the product that I'm delivering to people. For instance, I have a crappy little subdivide in Jones County. It was like 236 acres where we did 9 25-acre lots. And we've only sold 3 lots in like, it's been 9 months. And it's like, no one really wants to spend $1,500 per month right now for a 25-acre piece of farm with nothing on it, 25-30 minutes from the city. Conversely, the one I just did in Midland, where it's development all around, we did 76 lots and they all sold in less than a month for about $8 million. So that product, completely different from a random farm in the middle of nowhere. The price point was also different. We came in at $950 to $1,000 per month in Midland versus $1,500 for some random farm in the middle of nowhere. So as you start to think about doing this at scale, it's like the market is a little bit more challenging right now, I think. And so it's like, what are people actually willing to buy and what can they afford? Under $1,000 a month is a great price point. You can originate, I love owner financing, you can originate $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 notes at 10 years, 7% for $700, $800, $900 a month. And that is extremely affordable and appealing to people to move outside the city and own 1, 5, 10 acres, whatever it is. Not so much the rural vacant land nowadays where you're trying to get $1,000 or $1,500 a month for a farm or a desert square or whatever, half hour to an hour away from the city. So I think product has become extremely important, especially as I focus on scaling. But yeah, the buyers, similar to what Trevor described, the new American dream, land ownership.
Yeah, it's
I've got access to 2 different kinds of marketplaces. One of them would be the builders who I sell tight lot subdivisions to, and their demand is driven by home buyer demand, like the end user. So there's that one. And then outside of that, I have this big mix of inventory that just goes to the MLS. For me, that's the best marketplace that there is. And we're not dealing with anything that's like 4 hours from the closest town. Anything we've got is within 1 or maybe 1.5 hours from a big MSA. So generally speaking, demand is there. Even if the market is softer, like John was saying, I agree with that. Interest rates are up. The things are all over the place with the current administration and economy and all that. People are scared, just nervous, and it costs more to buy now. But I think our really big upside is we go to the biggest marketplace that there is, because when a person's on the MLS marketplace, they have a realtor that's already vetted them because they don't want to spend all this time and not get a commission. They're motivated, ready, pre-qualified. But for us, we have every kind of product you could think of. We've got a house. We have a 6-acre mobile with a mobile home. We've got 19 vacant acres. We've got just everything you could imagine. And what I find is there's no bad product, only bad pricing, as long as you're near an MSA. So for us, because we're buying it between 10 and 50 cents on the dollar because of the title problems, the ownership issues, when markets go up, we just trend upwards with the comps. When the markets are down or volatile like they are now, we'll look at the fair market value according to the comps, and then discounted 10 or 15%. And that's enough to get things moving for us right now. But we still have pretty consistent sell-through in all of our inventory. But we do have to watch the pricing. Otherwise, if we held firm at what the comparable said, our stuff would sit. Now, when it comes to the builder lots, we just sold a 350 lot subdivision, me and two guys out of Dallas. I thought we were going to sell for $12 million. We sold it for $9 million. Wow. That's a 25% haircut. Now, thank God, it was an entitlement deal, so we paid half that for it. So we still made a lot of money, but we had to give away $3 million on the profit side, because when you got 4 builders that are interested and all their bids come in at a very tight window, that's your market is speaking, and you either listen to it or it will punish the shit out of you. So, so we just decided, we have to sell it. We brought it to market at a time when it's softer, and we went. And we got another 250 acre deal that is just outside of Austin, and we're now getting bids back on that one. It's been about a 2-year entitlement process. And our offers are about 15% shy of what we forecasted. Now, the good news is the mud value is up by about 15%. So when you net it all out, we should walk with the same dollars. But there's about a 15% softness in the land purchase side from these big builders. So across the board, it's soft. If you have the ability to lower your price at all, man, it can make a world of difference in you having a bunch of inventory that's just sitting, work in progress, or you converting it into cash quickly and moving on.
Yeah, and buying right is really the key with what you're describing there, where you have that margin. Anthony, I know you're down in Arizona. All the headlines are saying prices are crashing. What are you seeing?
So the new builders definitely are pulling back on some of the smaller infill lots. What we are seeing, though, is some of the larger institutional single-family builders are actually starting to come back in the woodwork and getting land. They're obviously getting at a discount compared to the asking price, but they are starting to gobble up land. On the multifamily, we have a 338-unit site that there wasn't a ton of interest on, found a buyer that's picking it up from us. And then all of a sudden, like a faucet turned on. I can't tell you how many brokers reached back out saying, hey, is this site still available? We're interested. It seems like a lot of the larger multifamily developers watched the demand get gobbled up, and there's not a ton of large multifamily currently being entitled because nobody knew where the market was going. So there's going to be that supply-demand inverse, which is going to be good. So there's a couple big multifamily guys grabbing larger tracts of land now just to bank it over the next couple of years as that continues to degrade. And also, a lot of the LIHTC builders are really going hard. So the low income housing tax credit builders are also ramping up for the multifamily space because there still is a demand for affordable multifamily. It's just been, things got a little carried away and overbuilt in Phoenix, but we're starting to see that the inventory has been all gobbled up. So there's a lot of new supply that's going to be needed here in the very near future.
Makes sense. Justin, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing the radius that we were, I guess through COVID, we were blessed to see it 3-4 hours outside of a major metro. You're starting to see that come down to that hour to hour and a half where guys are saying, yeah, I kind of want the American dream. I want to have this recreational piece of property I can go out to, but I don't want to drive that far anymore. I don't want to get back in traffic because everybody's on the road again. The price point, that 100, 125 and less, because if you're generating the owner finance notes, it does make it affordable for them. We're seeing that stuff still sell through pretty quickly, but we're seeing the radius come down. And as Logan said, we've seen a 10% to 20% softening in some of our prices, which when you buy right, when you force it appreciation, you have the room there that it's not really hurting you at your bottom line. You just can't have your ego get in the way and say, hey, I've got to hold on to this because this is what the comp said. Well, the comp said that 4 months ago. And every entrepreneur is, ego. They have an ego. They're used to doing things on their own. They've got to be right. They gamble on themselves. But there's a point where you say, hey, hold on. 10.5 and 9.5 aren't a big deal if you paid $5,800 an acre for it. So you make your money, you move on, you put it into something else. One of the other things that we're seeing as well as our bigger properties, the 1031 money, it's starting to show back up. And I think it's people starting to exit because they're getting nervous because the housing market's softening, or they're selling bigger properties to downsize a little bit. So we're seeing that cycle through too, where if you understand how to help somebody with the 1031 or land banking stuff, you can process that for them. And, Trevor, wasn't the lady that bought out at Mule Creek Ranch, she was a 1031 from her property she sold out, wasn't she?
No,
it was not
this particular.
Not this one. Okay, the one before that was.
But we had plenty of them that had 1031 buyers.
Absolutely. So we talk about the buyer range. we were a 20% owner finance, 80% cash, or come to closing with either traditional financing or somebody or their cash. We're seeing it 90-10 now on our stuff that's sub 150. For us, it's good because now we know 15 years, we've got good assets, we've got a long runway. We'll continue to run with that, but it does eat cash up if you're not prepared for that. And so, understanding what you're going to do with that on the back end of your business and making sure you're prepared to carry, the burn rate as Logan kind of mentioned.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, kind of to summarize, is buying right, as always, is essential. Staying close to major growing cities, not all you do that's been offering owner financing help quite a bit. And I think that was the main couple consensus points there.
And not letting your ego get in the way and recognizing the time value of money I'll take a haircut on a deal if I can put it into something that's in this particular market actively going to produce a greater return than whatever the expectation was whenever the deal was initially acquired or initially underwritten. So we've got a huge long list of questions here, which I know we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we did ask our listeners for what they would want to ask a dude like this. And one of the things that I would love to hear from you guys is if you were to get started again today, starting in 2025 with the current market conditions, and you have give or take around $100,000 in cash that you're ready to invest into your business, whether you started off doing maybe smaller land flips, I know Logan started off in San Antonio with really small deals, or doing much larger rural acreage or subdivides. How would you start it? Would you play it differently than how you did it whenever you got started, 40 generations ago, like Trevor? Would you staff up front? Would you build your team first? Go for it. Trevor, get us started.
This will be different than what most people are going to say. I would go by Logan's program. I would go by Justin's program or John's program or one way or other. I would learn what a good deal was, especially to add value, especially in this market right now, right? Where there's a lot of these sellers that still want their high number, but they're flexible with when they get paid and how they get paid. I would figure out how to do that, how to add that value, put enough money down to control them, and then I would go find them capital. That's what I would do. I would learn what to do, how to add value, how to learn how to find these great deals, whether it's pennies on the dollar like Logan does, or John goes out and finds and subdivides, or Justin how to subdivide and owner finance and things like that. That's what I would do. I would keep as much of my powder dry as possible, and I use as much, 50% of that to control deals with long runways, and I would go raising capital and building relationships.
Love it. John, what about you?
You got $100K to work with?
That's it. That's your starting off.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I'm curious. How much did you start with cash wise? And I'm curious what everybody started with, because I think I started with 20 to get going in like 2016, and then had to re-up. I'm just curious where you started with.
I think it was about 25.
Okay. Hey, Logan, what'd you start with?
I was getting paid in the oil field, $150,000 a year, and every month I'd go buy another vacant lot with that, and I built a couple dozen of those. So I ended up with a couple million in equity, but I eased into it. And the first property I sold, I got paid a couple $100,000, and I took that to start.
Okay.
But it was this weird process. It wasn't just the day one with X dollars,
Okay. Anthony.
Yeah. Similar situation where you just roll, if you have a good job, roll all the capital into real estate.
Yeah, I started dead broke. Didn't have a penny to my name in the savings account because I was working as a plumber, not making much, because when I was a plumber, they weren't getting paid shit, and now they're all millionaires. But yeah, I had nothing to my name, got into wholesaling and just kept rolling each wholesale profit forward, and kept wholesaling for a while until I had enough nest egg to start actually buying land.
Okay.
Dan,
Thanks.
you start with.
I mean, I had about 10 grand. I had a few hundred in equity and rentals, but liquid had about 10 grand.
Yeah. I had about 60,000 is what my starting point was, which my first deal was just lucky. Bought for 40, sold for 185, and then quit. But John, you have $100,000 to start with. You've been a responsible adult. You're using that Texas Tech education for something.
Well, that's good because it was used very little. But Look, I think if you're a beginner, you skip all the BS of nowadays of direct mail, of flipping, of cold calling, all this BS, and you go straight to the top. And that is probably starting with some small development project, whether it's some sort of distressed property like Logan's doing or a subdivide like many of us are doing. I would obviously recommend a smaller subdivision. In real estate, it's securing the deal, then it's securing the funding or financing, and then it's selling it or cashing out. And so go secure yourself a relatively simple subdivide, whether it's 40, 50, 100 acres with little to no improvements. You can double your money. Those can be purchased with seller financing, or you're going to lock down the deal with your capital you have, cost you a few thousand to do all your research, study, etc. And then you'll go and raise the money, and you buy 100 acres for $3,000 an acre, and you double your money. You make $3,000 an acre. You made $300,000, and those deals nowadays are, I would say, they're simple but not easy. I mean, you definitely got to figure out what the heck you're doing, know all the regulations, etc. But they're out there, and I think it's a lot easier to do that than to try and mess around with sending a bunch of direct mail and handle all your inbound leads and get frustrated because you're not getting direct mail response like people used to, and you're trying to figure out all these different counties and states and areas, and you're blasting all over the place. So I would go straight to doing probably a simple subdivide. That's my opinion. Secure some pretty good financing and just keep it simple.
That's awesome. Anthony, say you didn't spend all your money on guns and cars and had $100,000 saved up. How would you get started?
I would dump a bunch of money into sales training. That's one of the most important things that I did for myself, and I watched my own success in the industry grow substantially after I got into understanding sales and how to actually talk to people. Because before, that was the biggest bottleneck for me, was being able to, communicate effectively to people and why my pricing is what it is. So I'd do sales training. I would get into a good program, finding highly distressed assets that you can get for pennies on the dollar so you can maximize your return, get a couple of deals under your belt, and then move into, like Jon saying, some of these subdivisions. Or if you can tie yourself to a bigger boat like Jon and find someone great to learn from, just expedite the process and go straight there. It all has to kind of reverse engineer what they want their life to look like. Do they want to do infill lots in town? You can make good money flipping infill lots and doing, 10-unit apartment entitlements, or you can get outside of the town where competition may be a little less, and start splitting things up. So it all depends on what they want their business to look like long-term.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, I think you said you started with 20.
Yeah,
right?
We started with 20 on desert properties and then sold out, and then owner finance, took another unsecured loan, and kept growing from there. Here's my problem with this question is you're asking guys that have already went through the struggle. So this person has $100,000 and they're wanting to do it. That guy's not fucking hungry. And excuse my language. Is he going to be hungry to do that? Because every one of the things that they listed, these gentlemen all learned because they were hungry and they wanted more, and they had to grow it. They had to roll it. They had to figure out the distress piece. They had to, learn something. So the education base here is coming back in time. Give me $100,000, but the same education I have now, it's going to be totally different than being hungry and trying to grow from there. The simple subdivides, if I don't want to spend any of that on marketing, is learning what a good deal is, Trevor said. The simple subdivides, as Jon said, those are, to me, what would be the easiest, thing to look at right now. We have when we first started coastal stuff, I had my 9-year-old nephew buying coastal properties, and he was paying $50 from the state of Arkansas and flipping them for $500 to $1,000. He was 9 at the time. He just turned 16, so he's coming to intern with me this summer. And that's what we're going to have him do. He's going to be online, on market, shopping that. But the difference for him is he has funding behind him. He's just going to have to learn what a good deal is. And once it's a good deal, he can learn that piece. He has the funding behind him, and we'll go to market in the MLS with a broker in the area, and we'll offer owner financing on everything. So a lot of the major problems that we all had starting, he's going to have figured out, but he's 16. So all he's going to have to do is, as Anthony said, be able to talk to the people. And I'm going to make him talk to every person. Like, it's going to be his project. It's his thing. And just to see if, hey, can we make a 16-year-old successful at flipping land? He was able to do it with coastal properties and sell them on Craigslist. Now, can he, at 9, he was emailing them back. Can he do it now at 16? And so, for him, it's not having $100,000 to start with, but because the checkbook's open. It's like, hey, just let's get good deals and make money. But, I think that question had kind of a fallacy there. It's like, hey, I worked really hard and made $100,000 or saved $100,000. Probably that person could do the same thing over and make 200 and invest it in some 10% market somewhere and do okay and live his happy life. But, I think that the question becomes, are they going to be hungry enough with that kind of capital to actually do the work that needs to be done? Because you give me that kind of comfort, I'm not going to get on the MLS and look every day for a 20 to 50 acre property that can be split 3 times that I'm going to make, double my money on after I split it using leverage.
So what you're saying is they should spend it all on guns and fun cars, and then get hungry.
Yep. They should.
Back against the wall, baby. Back against the wall.
Burn the boats. Is that what that's what they say, right? Burn the boats, burn the ships.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that right there is really fair. We all have a certain amount of hindsight bias with what we would do differently. And there is a certain pain point that's going to make it so we're a lot hungrier in this business to go after some of the stuff. But it's also this unfortunate human nature component that we're trying to resolve of the amount of fucking mistakes I've made myself that I've had people tell me not to do. Like Justin Sliva saying, don't start a fund. A year ago at a conference, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a fund. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, Dan and I are complaining about the fact that we got 2 email responses from our attorneys and spent nearly $1,000 just on random stuff like that now.
Yep.
Logan, what about you going back, $100,000 getting started today, though, in today's market?
Justin made a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. I immediately took the instructions and thought, this is what I would do. So the first thing I'll say is I'd go do distressed deals again. You can spend $10,000 and buy properties worth $100,000, turn a lot of capital around quickly with very low risk. I could do that by myself with no help for 40 hours a week and turn around $1 million at least in the first year and go from being broke to comfortable again. But I don't know. It's a good point. I mean, as we age, we slow down in many of us slow down in motivation and energy, and your business develops to where today I have a lot of people doing the work and I don't have to grind anymore, and our business grows and wealth continues to grow. But I don't know. Would I work as hard at 43 as I did 10, 15 years ago? Maybe I just moved down to Central America and maybe go flip for a year and make $1 million and go down to Central America and just chill. It was a lot of work, man. I worked 5 to 7 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week for 6 or 7 years. I mean, I really worked hard to build this thing, develop people, really get the capitalization structure under us. It was just a lot of work. I don't know if I would want to do all that again, man. It was hard.
I don't know how many times I've said that exact same thing. Don't know if I would do that again just because it was so fucking hard.
Yeah.
Well, another thing is, when I was young and poor,
is like, if you don't, if you don't think about burning this thing down and getting a job again, then you're not a true entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, something that a lot of folks don't think about is when you're young and have no money, you think having money is going to make you completely happy. And thankfully, I'm a pretty positive, optimistic person, and my disposition has been the same over the last 15 years. But today, I don't know that I'm any happier than I once was. I have more esteem and confidence, and life is very comfortable, but I'm not a happier person. So I don't know, man. As my kids age and grow up out of the house, I don't know if I would care to do all this. I might just go on the beach and chill, and I would still remain fairly happy. So
sounds like we need to get you a Porsche. I have not been unhappy in the Porsche to date with Sam.
It's true. Money can buy happiness, as Anthony said.
The same at the gun range. Every time I get a new gun and go to the range, I'm feeling pretty happy.
Well, and Trevor, I think, made an interesting point of there are times where it's painful. You'll look, and I think we've been desensitized in both perspectives. Of you have these wins, you make $20, $50, $100, $500,000 on a deal, and you're like, oh, just whatever, another day. Then you lose 20, 30, 40 grand. And I'm like, myself 5, 10 years ago, if I lost, I mean, I didn't have 30 grand to lose, but I'm losing 30 grand on a deal this week. And I'm just so stoked to get the cash back. I don't care. And you become desensitized in this. And sometimes you're like, man, maybe I should have stuck around my job, for a little bit. I had so much success in the corporate world. And then you come here and you get burnt a few times, but I'm only 4 years into this. I still have a long, long way to go. But to kind of stay along this track, are you happy with what you're doing? And we can run through everyone, starting with Trevor. Are you happy in this business that you run and have created?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a dirt guy through and through. I fucking love dirt.
I love everything about it. I love even the headaches, right? Like, you want to yell and scream at a bunch of people and a bunch of idiots and things like this sometimes, but like overall, I love this stuff. I love everything to do with it. Every time I go on a new piece of dirt, I fall in love with it. That's my whole problem, right? Like, I absolutely love this stuff. As far as what I'm doing right now, more of the rule stuff, I do. I really do. I love everything about it. I'll be the guy that's dead underwriting a deal or driving on a buggy, pass out from a heart attack, and that's just me though. But that's the way I've been my entire life, right? I always wanted to be outside, doing stuff outside, doing everything else. I'm not happy when I'm not traveling and seeing places. That's where, if I spend too much time here in this office, I'm not a happy person, even though it makes more money, things like this. But me being on the road, looking at properties, talking to landowners, I could do that all day, every day.
That's awesome. And I think something to pull out of Trevor's answer there is that you became an entrepreneur a lot of the times for the reason of freedom. And we have this tendency to trap ourselves in a job, which is why it's like, wait a second, I chose to do this. I need to choose to make sure that I've created and I'm iterating to make it so where it's something that I love and enjoy. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy and not take a ton of work to do, but I do think that sometimes we forget we have a choice. Jon, what about you? Are you happy with what you're doing?
Yeah, I echo much of what Trevor said. I freaking love what I do. I love land. I love the opportunities that it's afforded me and just the creativity of it and all the stuff I do on social media. I bought the town, of course, just the whole land brand. I love it. And I think most of all, I love doing deals, like looking at deals, like getting creative with deals, like crazy deals where you got to put them together and organize them and figure stuff out. I mean, it's all problem solving at the end of the day, but from a larger perspective, a higher level, I think you gotta love it. I mean, if you're trying to do this business or really anything in real estate, and you don't love it and you don't like what you do, you're gonna struggle big time with it. I mean, no one wants to be stuck doing what they don't want to do. And I mean, this business and real estate as a whole has a lot of flexibility, which is awesome. You can get financial freedom, you can get freedom to move and work in different places remotely, all that good stuff. But it's not a business for everybody. I think a lot of us were pitched this business at the beginning that it's passive income. You're not going to do anything except sit on your butt and collect checks, but it is far from that. And so if you don't enjoy it, I would not waste your time on it. I would go find something that you do enjoy, because I mean, there's plenty of ways to make money. If you just want to make simple returns, I mean, you can buy a note or invest in Sliva's fund or whatever it is. But if you want to actually operate and be in the trenches like all of us are, I mean, if you don't love what you do, you're freaking screwed.
So, Jon, you're saying Rich Dad Poor Dad book lied to all of us?
Yes, and so did some of the OG land gurus. Sig lies.
There we go. And we are going to take this question in that direction in just a minute. But Jon, I think, that's the beauty of this business, is you don't quite know exactly where it's going to take you, where your greatest profit center might be the brisket that you're making on the weekends. Can end up.
I wish.
Hey, I'm gonna vouch for Cornudas. I've been there. It's a cool town, and the staff at the restaurant is they were great. They treated me well. It was definitely cool to step foot in the parking lot at Cornudas. I have to say it. But it's out there, so make sure you have gas getting there or gas getting to get out of there, because the next gas stop coming back this way is a little ways.
There we go. You need to put a gas station in, but
He's got that, but it's $15 a gallon, and I wasn't paying that.
It's 10. It's 10.
Yeah,
I'm messing with you.
And one other point I want to draw out of there, which, from one of my favorite books, So Good They Can't Ignore You. It's the passion hypothesis, where everyone's told, go find what you're passionate about. Where it's like, you didn't know whenever you were, getting oil field education, that you were going to be really great at structuring land deals and negotiating these and putting all this. You've become passionate because you've learned how to do it and you've gotten good at it after years and years of hard work and hard effort, which is something that a lot of people won't spend enough time getting good at something, and then they'll never enjoy anything in their life because they always suck at everything they do. But Anthony, what about you? Are you happy in what you're doing?
So I'm a glutton for pain due to a pretty bad childhood, I guess, because that's probably why I've gravitated so much to what Logan does, because I have no problem taking on the messy, dirty, litigation heavy situations. And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I want to drink today. But then again, I kind of enjoyed the thrill of the mess and the fight and stuff like that. But for people watching, you don't have to be the top guy to make a ton of money in this industry. And you could still have weekends and nights off if just plug yourself in with a bigger boat. I mean, there's some of the best investors in town right now, and people would be blessed to get on any of their teams. And now you have someone to go fight those legal battles and sit in the depositions and file the specific performance and deal with the memorandums late at 6 p.m. because the seller accidentally signed to somebody else who lied and said they were part of your company, which may or may not have happened yesterday. So those are the kind of things, that if you don't want to deal with that stuff, you can still make 6 figures plus a year just getting tied to a bigger boat, and you get all the benefits of working in real estate plus the advent of having someone else deal with the headache. So I know it's super sexy. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur in the modern world and be their own boss, but it also comes with a ton of risk and a ton of time you're going to invest and a lot of stress. Like if you can't handle that level of stress, you may want to find someone willing to step into that role for you, and then you can live the life you want. That's kind of my takeaway from it. Because there have been some down months where I'm about to call Logan or Trevor and be like, hey, you guys hiring right now? I'm coming to work for you.
That right there is a critical piece of advice for people that are getting started, or even if you're further along. Having a job is not the worst thing on the planet, especially if you're working for a team who in whose mission you're aligned with and you enjoy the people, and that's awesome. And also think about estimate your abilities. If you've never run a large organization, it might be really, really hard and beyond your capabilities or capacity to actually run something big, where you might make more as a salesperson for someone, that already has the systems and financial backing. Justin, what about you? Are you happy?
Oh yeah. I think that the big difference is what drives the happiness. For me, my brain works in problem solving. And I think I heard that kind of several times. And so while land, the asset, I find that every piece of land has a certain view that just looks beautiful to me. And so I try to uncover that on that piece of property. Outside that romance side of that, it's the problem solving aspect of this. Like, hey, can I fix this deed? Hey, can I fix this access? Can I structure this deal in a way that it makes sense that we're going to make money? And whether it's the asset is land or it's a multifamily or it's the challenge that for me is what drives that happiness, because my mind works that way. And I think we heard that across the board here is like, hey, I want to fix this, or I want to try this, or I want to do it. So we're not saying, hey, I just want to be a real estate investor. No, we drive that problem. We want to be involved. We want to conquer it. It's our way to have that conquest where we're solving something that's a little bit more. And I think with any entrepreneurial journey, you're going to say, yeah, there's days where it sucks and there's seasons that may suck. And one of the things, echo what you just said, that 2024 was really tough on a lot of people in the market, and we're seeing people go back and get in the W-2s, and they have a newfound appreciation for, hey, that stability there. I didn't lose the knowledge I had. I can still do this, but I have that steady income to maybe make this more of a side hustle where they realize, hey, I can do 4 deals a year and still make $150,000 a year. I think that some of the expectations people have coming into us, which leads to unhappiness, is they want to become an instant millionaire versus just trying to challenge what their status quo was, whether it was $60,000 a year. Can I replace that? And what does that look like? Can I make $100,000 a year? And we lead these lives of expectation of being a millionaire in year one, when really you're just making a profit, and your business is something to celebrate in its own. And then how do you grow from there and keep hitting those wins?
Yeah. The goalposts have a tendency to keep moving further and further down the field as you grow and expand. And I think that one of the sentiments that's been echoed here is just the ability to solve complex problems. That's really great for a lot of people to connect what a win actually feels like in this business, rather than having it tied to a paycheck, because the zeros just keep coming and the feelings don't change that much. To being able to afford a lifestyle that you enjoy, and whether it's an expensive one, there's only a certain threshold that we're all kind of seeking out here. But being able to connect it to that instant gratification of, like, that's why I love doing yard work. Of at the end of the day, man, that felt great because I can see the results of my labor, as versus some of these more complex projects that might take years and years that move the needle. And then you finally get paid and you're like, oh, well, what was the purpose of that? And it was, the actual labor that was involved in solving the complex issues associated with it. But Logan, what about you? Are you happy in what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. The fun part is you get to find problems, figure it out, and the better you get at it, the more money you make. We intentionally choose to do big problems, big solves sometimes, and we get really big checks because of it. So that's exciting. It's more about the element of control and the solution and the freedom, I think, than anything is. A lot of dollars come with it. But yeah, I can't really think of anything else I'd rather be doing.
Central America. You could have said that twice. So to get the kids.
That does sound like fun. Speaking honestly, I also know the guys like us that are in it for the thrill of the chase. The money matters, obviously, but stepping aside from the money part, like you've got to be engaged, you've got to be interested, you got to have things that keep you going. And I've had relatives that stepped away from things like this when they were older and they die, like literally, a couple of years later. They were older, of course, but there's something to be said for productive people remaining productive.
Yep.
Yeah. So a number of you have alluded to coaches, gurus. Got it. So that topic of the guru has come up several times. Jon, you said a lot of us were pitched the passive land investing. We talked about PPC a lot before we started reporting and how that's all the rage. A lot of these people are talking as if cold calling and mail are dead, which is certainly not true. But at the same time, Trevor said right away he would buy one of your guys' programs if he were new. And so discerning who is legitimate and doing deals and who is just a good marketer or maybe did deals 10 years ago but has no knowledge of what's going on in the market today is challenging. And I'm sure all you can relate to seeing a lot of bad advice being given by people who clearly are not actively doing business today. So how do you, if you're that new person looking to hire a consultant to coach, figure out who's worth hiring, who's legitimate and who's not? Trevor, if you want to kick us off.
Oh man. Yeah, I would being a completely new person, that's kind of tough, man. Because right, like you see all this stuff. I would be, if I were to follow Jon, right? Like he shows plaques, he shows the stuff, right? He's actually on the properties. Obviously some of that could have been faked or could be faked, right? Just like the Lambos and the sky, the penthouse deals that they rent and things like this. And as a seasoned professional, it's easy to see who's real or not when you just talk to them, right? The way they talk, how they talk, what they talk about. But man, as a new person, that's a tough. I mean, just listen to this podcast right now, right? Like everyone's on here, right? Like Justin's got a program, Logan's got a program, Jon's got a program. Like everybody, like if you're on here, something like this, that you hear this kind of conversation, you would already realize, hey man, these guys are crazy. They're not quite right in the head, but they do what they're supposed to be doing, right? Because they're deal junkies. They do whatever, but they have the scars. So you know what I mean? And the brain damage and everything else like that. And they talk about it in the manner to understand that. That's what I would do. To be honest with you, that's a kind of a tough question because I don't know, when you get in that loop where you get in all the ads and everybody's sending you ads and everything else. I don't know. That's a pretty tough one going back as a complete newbie.
Trevor, man, I think your bullshit detector's got to be good. When we hire people, we look for attitude, aptitude, and bandwidth, and we have core values of integrity and hard work and things like that. But we've been really good at hiring people. And if you're interviewing a coach, all you're doing is hiring a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm surprised when I hear people got duped by somebody. I'm like, dude, that guy's a piece of shit from the beginning. How can you not see that this guy's a scumbag? And I know that you're a very skilled scumbag, so I don't want to discount that. But I mean, I spent time talking with Jon at an event in Dallas a couple of years ago. He and I were just podcasting together. And I remember walking away thinking, this dude's legit. This dude's honest. This dude's a good dude. And I feel like my gut was right because I was listening to the cues. I don't know. There's just something about your gut. At some point, you have to trust it. And if your gut is developed, that's what you got to go on. That's what we do, I think.
Yeah, I think for me is, will that person put their money where their mouth is, that coach you're hiring? So I think anyone here, if we had somebody that came to us and said, hey, I have this deal and it was a good deal, you're going to put your dollars into work right away with it if they don't have the capital. Then a lot of the gurus that you've seen in the past, that was always my big thing. Is like, well, hey, why aren't you putting your money to work? Like you're making all this money, you're so rich in land and I'm bringing you good deals and you're like, oh yeah, it's a great deal. You should do it. Cool. Fund it for me. Like I'm brand new. I don't have the capital. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't kind of do that. Or they tell you something and then you ask for something simple to prove that. Like, yeah, people buy multifamilies with a direct mail. great. You have a blind offer for that. Like, what do you do? And then they can't tell you that it's a letter of intent first. Then it's a purchase and sales agreement. There's steps to it. They can't walk you through all the details and the steps. And so the technical ability. So for me, it's putting the money together and then the technical ability at a simplistic level that they actually did something of that effect. Everybody may say, well, I just put it under a contract. Well, yeah, but typically commercial or multifamily, you may do a letter of intent so you can get to that next level. Say, hey, this is what we're going, but we want to see this to do our inspection period. Then we're going to negotiate the purchase sales agreement. Then we're going to go to close after that. And they can't walk you through basic, just simple things like that. And it's tough to watch from, the perspective of a new person, because you're like, oh, they have really great production value and they've got this nice following on Instagram and they may have a Lambo or they have a Rolex, but it's, you have to see through that and actually kind of, was this person going to put his money where his mouth is? And do they have that technical ability?
Yeah. You know what we do, man? We schedule meetings with our people that are currently in our program and have been in the program in the past. And when we're wrapping up like a semester, we say, hey, would you be willing to talk with somebody in the future? If you liked your experience, would you be willing to share that with somebody else? And when we're going through this process of, quote, interviewing people, we just want to make sure they've got some experience and they're like well aligned with our program. We offer to have them talk to people that are currently in it or have been in it in the past, stuff like that. And I mean, those have been very convincing, but it's legitimate. And I'm JVing with a ton of people that have been through our program. So our money is at stake. We're doing it. And you have a lot of people that will testify,
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it, I think. Yeah.
Well, to Logan's point, your BS meter has to be good, but let's be honest, most people's is not. And that's just, people are not good at judging other people. People can be deceitful. That's just the way of life. I don't know how much money others in here have spent on personal education, but I think my number is up over 500,000 personally with some of the big time gurus. And I have literally wired 50 to 100 grand into a black hole and have never gotten it back before. And I know what that feels like as far as paying for education and getting hit by, something that is not good from a quote unquote guru. But that being said, you obviously have to be, the person you're learning from has to be doing deals, has to have the proof that they're doing deals, has to have testimonials, like Logan said. I mean, hey, hopefully multiple people have good experiences in their program. But I kind of take an alternative approach in the sense that, like, yeah, I've spent a lot of money personally on personal education, but I've learned a shit ton. Have I spent money and just got completely burned? Yes. But I think you will learn something from anybody, even if it's a complete BS or beginner. Like, you should be able to get some gold nuggets from literally every program, every person. But the problem that people make when they go to get coaching is that they expect this crazy over deliverance of value, which hopefully the quote unquote guru can provide. But really at the end of the day, it all comes down to what the quote unquote student is putting into it and willing to get out of it. Pretty much all of us here are self-made. We all bought a course at Once Upon a Day or program to get us going, to get us started. We learned a few things, but then we just took it and ran with it. So all these people who are just blindly going in to buy coaching and training and all this, they're doing it with the wrong mindset, where they're thinking, oh, this guru is going to completely hold my hand. It's going to be a one-stop shop. They're going to teach me everything that I need to know. And that's just impractical viewpoint, in my opinion. That person is there to give you, the right direction, hopefully some golden nuggets to help you along the way. But at the end of the day, it is the quote unquote student's responsibility to get whatever it is out of it that they want to get out of it. And that takes perseverance, effort, work, determination, an open mindset, willingness to learn. And it's really up to the student to make it happen.
I think that's two amazing points there. One is, as entrepreneurs, I think we're all naturally optimistic. And if we see what looks like an opportunity, it doesn't mean it always is. That's huge. And then the other thing is making sure we vet out and then continue our education long term, because I believe everybody on here still relies on continuing education. Like, once you feel your pride and ego kicking and I'm the top dog, that's where your business stagnates and dies, because things are always changing. I just went through Logan's course in this most recent go around, and it's been life changing. Not to be overly dramatic, but it opened my eyes to some new ways to do things that I would have never thought. And I'm sure if I were to go through John's, it'd be the same type of situation where I'd be like, oh, why have I been so stupid about this? I could have saved myself all this time and effort on these lot splits, and I'm doing it this old school archaic way. So it's just great points to take away from that.
Yeah. And I think one additional thing I want to draw out of John's answer is just the idea that you can learn something from everyone. Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, that's one of my favorite, kind of life advice books. And that's one of the points, like chapter 7 or something, that, make the assumption that you're going to learn something from everyone that you talk to. And I think whenever you're vetting people out, coaches, consultants, I think one, if they don't have any battle scars, have potentially never lost money or had just things go really south, that's a huge red flag. And something that you really need to avoid. But yeah, I think all of us are for the idea of continuing education with people that it might be, the same exact business model. All of us to a certain extent have very, very similar business models, but just like Anthony said, of learning a different way of doing it sometimes is that light bulb moment, which I think occurred with a lot of us maybe when we read Rich Dad Poor Dad when we were a teenager, of like, oh, need to buy assets to pay for our liabilities. And it's just like framing it in that particular way has been huge. So I think these were all really, really great answers from you guys.
Yeah, I really wanted to kind of summarize this whole. Like, Trevor, I don't know if you remember this, but when I met you in person in Colorado the first time, we were driving down to Pueblo to look at the new builds, and I think I forget exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of, somebody's legitimate by their horror stories. Because I think I was telling you about bailing my contractor out of jail, and you had plenty of stories to tell that line of thought. And so, if somebody's talking as if it's all rosy, if they don't have a problem, they can't get kicked in the teeth, they're certainly not doing a lot of business. So I think that's something to watch out for.
That's a huge point, Dan, is if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If every day they're private jet Lambos doing this and you haven't seen like a single deal they're a part of, like not a single site plan, nothing. It's like, it seems too good to be true. So it's probably not. And if they don't have any losses they can share with you, because I think everybody on here has got a list of mistakes we've made a mile long, or at least I know I have. And that's why I don't lend on flips anymore, because I got out of my wheelhouse and lost a bunch of money. But
yeah. Yep, and things totally out of your control go wrong all the time. Sometimes the neighbors run out with an AR-15 and a bulletproof vest and scare your buyers away, as happened to me this week. So the fun of rural America. But anyways, a tangent question to this whole point that we really wanted to get to on the show is about mistakes, right? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making in the business, or advice being given by some of these gurus that you believe to be a mistake? Trevor, if you want to kick us off.
Oh shit! How much time you got? No, I mean, to be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff that's not bad information, right? Like buy low, right? Sell on owner financing, sell on this. What the biggest deal is just like Justin and Anthony talked about and everything else, is the ego, right? You start getting some, at least where I've seen most of the mistakes, just like Anthony just talked about on lending, right? On flips. He got too big. He got too fast. He started getting out in front of his skis. He knew everything. And that's when life and the good Lord decided to slap you upside the head and say, hey, homeboy, right? Like you're not who you thought you were, right? And part of this is interesting. I was talking with the buddy of mine that out of Colorado, and the other day he was like, man, he's like, did we just get lucky with the way interest rates work? He's like, because it feels like we just got lucky, but we did all this business and now it's slow because of interest rates, right? Like the dirt hasn't changed. The cost of capital has changed, right? The dirt didn't change from 20 to 21 at middle of 22. The dirt didn't change. The cost of capital came down, right? That's the only reason, like same thing with Justin, when we talk about owner financing, 150 and below, is affordability for the everyday person, right? And again, we didn't do anything wrong, right? But usually when you get hung is when you get too big, too fast, and you don't follow the rules that you gave yourself or someone told you about, right? And there are a million people, there's a million old heads and gray hairs and everything else, especially that did so many creative deals and learned so much. I've got two guys that are worth tens of millions of dollars each that live in San Angelo, Texas, that are mentors of mine. And they're like, oh yeah, I heard about that. We were doing that in the 80s, right? All the new guru stuff, all the new stuff like this, right? Like everything else. It was like, because interest rates were at fucking 18%. You know what I mean? Like they literally had to get creative, and they had to find ways
to do these things. And you're like, oh, that's a land contract. Now it's the installment method, right? Like there's so many different ways of doing all this. It's the understanding that when things are good, you're not that good. And when things are bad, you're not that bad, right? Like that's the big deal with all this stuff, right? Like I haven't lost any money on deals, but it's taken a long time to get money back on them, right? Like that's a God honest truth, right? We came into a deal that we thought were going to be a home run, no problem whatsoever. And then the county decided they weren't going to. You know what I mean? And so, that's where, again, whether that's a value add or what Logan does, and that's what I'm very interested, with Logan stuff on fixing problems. Again, basis protects everything. You buy at the right price point, doesn't make a difference. Whether it's a bale of cotton, a barrel of oil, pork bellies, or dirt, it makes no difference. If you buy at a cheap enough price, you can always undercut the competition, and you're always going to make a profit, right? That's the key to all this stuff, right? And that's what Justin talks about all the time, buying down his risk, right? The cheaper you can get it, the more risk you can take. That's the key to all this stuff, and not just be like, hey, man, that last deal was a freaking home run. I'm so badass at this, right? Everybody tells me how badass I am, right? The bank lady is like, oh, Mr. Probandt, you put in another check today. Yeah, I did. Like it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing.
All right. Thank you for that, Trevor. Japan, what do you think?
That's a good problem to have when your banker's saying you're putting too much money in, apparently.
They call you Mr. They don't call you by your first name anymore.
Yeah, they make me wait line.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many different ways you could go with this. Obviously, I think a few of the major mistakes and things I see going on, a lot of over delegation. They're just hiring VAs, think there's some sort of easy button in this business. People have gotten away from boots on ground, actually being in the dirt, nitty gritty, learning the market, studying, researching, doing all the hard work instead of just, all being outsourced to some DA or some cheap labor to handle acquisitions. And it's like people then will over purchase or purchase in the wrong market where land is not going to move. A lot of people don't start building relationships. They think they're just going to sit in their home office and buy land remotely, which you certainly could. You can make money that way, but I mean, you're going to need people to fund your deals. You're going to need people to pass you deals. So building relationships. I mean, a lot of people are not on social media nowadays. That's a huge mistake. You got to have some sort of website, Facebook presence, probably Instagram. I mean, it really depends on your demographic and market, but there's so many different ways to take this. I mean, those are just a few of the bunch. I think, having the ability to just be a continual learner and put in the hard work. There's no easy button. This is not a get rich quick scheme, unlike most people were taught it was maybe back in the day.
Well, John, something I want to really hammer home is people tell you this idea. You already said it once before, but that this is a passive business and that you can delegate or abdicate all responsibilities and do all that. If you want to do that, invest in someone else's business. That's it. Yeah. You're not going to be able to pay, any coach or anyone to create a business for you that's passive. Unless you're just investing in theirs. And that's something that is just an absolute lie, because as soon as a question comes up that your VA that you're paying $3 an hour in the Philippines doesn't know the answer for some zoning variance that's going on in some, whatever it is, you're lost and your model is not going to be successful. So if that's another red flag.
Well, you could buy land notes too, or buy performing notes of whatever it is, houses, whatever, at 16 to 20% yield, and you just got a monthly paycheck coming in. I mean, that's the easiest route, in my opinion, to make put it in money and it's on your butt.
John, you mean 14% yield is what we're selling them for? 14% yield.
I actually meant 12.
Yeah, 12 and a half.
Here we go.
I've got 3% if you're buying.
I see 15 to be out of 16.
Anthony, what do you have for us? What's the really shitty advice you're hearing?
And so that's kind of the touch on what everybody else is saying. Everyone's saying it's going to be easy. Here's my system. You can't fail. You're going to hire these VAs. You're going to skip trace this list, and they're going to do all the work for you. I mean, everybody on here could go buy a $250,000 CNC machine and go make aerospace parts, right? Technically. But if we don't know how to run the CNC machine, we're not going to get very far. So it's kind of the same thing I see plugging in a system you know nothing about. Like if you're getting all these leads all day long, but you don't know how to close a deal or what's a deal, how are you going to succeed? And a lot of the information is the person teaching you still active in the business, because they may be teaching you information that's a year, 2 years old. And same thing, if they're running on an old software on that CNC machine, that's not the new system you're using, you're not going to get very far either. So it's understanding that there's no plug and play that I've seen yet. Maybe someone has it out there, but so far I haven't seen it. You have to know what you're doing at the end of the day to, one, make sure the VAs, if you're hiring VAs, know how to cold call. How are you going to listen to their calls and give them pointers on how to close a deal if you've never closed a deal yourself? You know, how are you going to deal with title issues that you've never dealt with before if you don't have a good group around you that's actively dealing with that? Like I called Logan yesterday, freaking out, like, hey, I got a big rip that's falling apart. What do I do? I've never done a memorandum in Kaufman County. And he's like, this is how you handle it. Boom, boom, boom. So having people in your corner that you can rely on is huge, but you're not going to get that if you just think it's a plug and play system and you can be hands off and it just churn out money.
Yeah, Anthony, this is why I'm glad you said that sales training is the first thing you'd invest in, because if you're going direct to seller, it's a little different if you're going on market and just buying on market. There's still an aspect of negotiating, but especially if you're going direct to seller, you need to know how to negotiate. And to your other point about people teaching what worked maybe 10 or 20 years ago, in our school group, Mason and I had a guy that was new saying, oh, I think I'm going to mail Lee County, Florida, generic land offer letters at 30 cents on the dollar. And we just laugh like, man, please just, donate it to a charity or give it to us for telling you that. That's a waste of time. There's a lot of people teaching what used to work. But Logan, you want to comment on the question?
We've gone a lot of different directions. Give me the exact question again so I can be
Set to. I think it's biggest mistake.
The worst advice that you see.
Oh, I thought we were biggest mistake we've seen. Okay.
That's okay.
This maybe wouldn't be a total mistake, but it will be a difference I've watched. Everybody generally in the market has gotten accustomed to buying services for this business. Folks are offering every service possible, big data, big skip tracing, big VAs, big CRM. And all this is developed in the last 10 years as the market was hot and the small to mid cap real estate investment business has really taken off. And one thing that I find is interesting is that a lot of folks, when they come into our program, they're specifically used to doing all that and being more a manager of these services. And in our program, you have to have people that are doing the skip tracing because we use a special program that's high quality data, but a person has to run it. You can't just bulk skip it. And we don't call 300 people in a day. We're only calling maybe 5 or 8 in that range. So you have to actually research each one. So we are much lower volume of processing for the leads, but we have an incredibly high hit rate. So people are used to running all these data programs and all this stuff and just managing this third-party stuff, which is a very low return rate. We have a very high return rate. So I see people that have gotten accustomed to doing things in a lazy way. And we're reminding people, whoa, we're back to the basics. We're just showing you how to build this really big company with very affordable spend and very low head count, but you are going to have to put in the work and train people to do it. So that's kind of a thing that I'm seeing happening in the marketplace. I will tell you the biggest lie ever is passive investment. Unless you're buying a blue chip dividend that pays you 3.5%, a blue chip stock that pays you 3.5% dividends, man, there ain't nothing that's passive. Mortgage notes aren't passive. You might have to foreclose. You got to see if these assholes are keeping up on their insurance. And even if you have a property management company that does that, you still got to look at your statements. You still got to make decisions. You still have to reload that note portfolio because in 7 to 10 years, it's going to diminish. So there's all these things that the passive lie is for sure a lie. And it's interesting. It changes the way I look at retirement, so to speak. One day in retirement, I probably won't be working for these 20 and 30% returns. I'll be looking at, now I look at it and say, gosh, I got to put it in something super stable that pays me a 4% return. So I'm looking at my nut on a 4% return because that can be truly passive as opposed to 12% return. So I'm going to retire on notes. No, you're not. Those are going to expire in 10 years. So maybe the passiveness of it all is BS.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin, what do you think?
And I think everybody's hit great points. The passiveness piece, but for me is the oversell of just keeping to the basics and how to find a deal, know if it's a good deal, buy it for less than it's worth and sell it for more. I think at the end of the day, if you can shrink the whole business down into that, And instead of looking at all the extra shiny stuff that's been sold outside of that, that's what you have to be able to do. And I think that's the biggest lie we've seen, is that you need the extra VAs, the 4-hour work week. You're just going to get into this and it's just going to magically print money because you're now the CEO and you want to have that on your LinkedIn profile. When in reality, source a deal that's bought for less than it's worth and sell it for more. Now, there's more complexities in that, but that's simply what we do, and you have to be able to do it with whatever way you're going to learn it.
Yeah, that's all really good advice, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time, but we do have at least one more question before we wrap up, and this is on branding, where as you're building this business that oftentimes is direct to seller or has more public facing, there's this weirdness or complexity sometimes that we create associated with the brand. I see Anthony, Jon, Trevor, you look like you're filming on a Nokia phone. I don't know if you're wearing a branded hat. But we've all kind of established brands. How important is the brand that you're creating in your land or real estate acquisition business? And how do you go about creating something that is built to last for that moment where maybe you have a CEO come in and run the business for you? Trevor, if you want to get started.
Do the right thing, do it well, repeat. Do the right thing, do it well, repeat. That's how you build a brand. It's not however many fucking posts you make, videos, podcasts, whatever it is. Make sure you build good quality product. You treat your brokers, your lenders, your buyers, your sellers, you treat them all well. That's how you build a brand, in my opinion, right? And that might be old school, but I don't really give a shit. Like, that's what's important to me.
That's why you're here.
Dude, one of the things that I think is an easy way to build a brand, I actually thought about this while I was driving the other day, because there are like people saying, here's how to build your personal brand. Build a good business. Don't worry about a brand. Do hard work. Figure out how to make money. Make some stuff that works and is really good. And then go on the internet and talk about it. I ain't no guru at all. I really suck at a lot of this stuff. But what really is awesome is I talk about how badass our deals are and how stable our company is. And people say, your brand. I'm like, I'm just telling you what we do, man. So there's no method to this shit. For us, we just talk about what we do. We have a good business. So now we have a good brand, I guess.
So, and to ask a direct follow-up question to you, Logan, do you feel like your brand is Logan Fullmer, or is it Asset Resolution Partners? And how are you happy with the distinction that's kind of been created so far?
It's just my name. Our company, the only reason we create an actual name for a company, because we'd call someone and say, did you realize you inherited 1/3 of a property and we're going to send you 10 grand tomorrow? And they think we're like some Chinese scammer in an Algerian basement calling them from a WhatsApp line. And we're like, no, dude, we're for real. Go look on Google Earth, go look on the internet. We're legit. That's the only reason we even made a brand. Everyone remembers my name and hardly remembers this entity. So we realized my name has become our brand for the 5 companies that run in our office.
Yeah. Gotcha. Jon, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, your name should always be your brand. I mean, the one thing that's going to survive the test of time is your name. I think personal brand is obviously extremely important no matter what business you're in. From a high level view, you have to do exactly what Trevor and Logan just said. I mean, actually do good shit and deliver results. That's what a brand is at the end of the day. I mean, you can get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, how do you actually utilize social media? How do you actually, think about building a personal brand, etc.? That's a completely different discussion. I'm a huge proponent of making your company name something to do with yourself, hence Jazz Land, Jazz Ventures, Jazz Capital, all my companies. Secondarily, if you can't do that, I would do what Logan did with his ARP, something that is related to the asset or what you're doing if you don't want your name to be involved. But I would always have my name be involved in my personal brand. Look at Trump's organizations, stuff like that. It's extremely important to build a personal brand, obviously. Then you got to have some social media presence. The best thing you can do is just deliver results and talk about hopefully how successful you are. But conversely, people like to know about the failures as well. So if you had a failure, you talk about that. That is also going to get a lot of attention for yourself and your personal brand. And it's also going to be a great learning experience for others. So to do it at scale, you need to start making money, quite a bit of money. And then you should just hire yourself a full-time videographer to follow you around, someone you can edit as well and just chop it up and start posting. Big mistake people make, I think, is not being authentic, obviously, but not being congruent in what they do and showing what they do, if it makes sense. I mean, I don't like just posting of me in the office. Like, I wouldn't chop up a reel of me sitting here in the chair on the mic. I would do that if I really was desperate for content. But what people really want to see is you out in the field on a piece of land, you driving a crazy car, you throwing stacks of money, you talking to someone cool, whether it's Donald Trump or whoever it is, a politician or a celebrity. I mean, those are the things that really resonate with people and are going to get you attention. And you got to have cool stuff to post about, man. No one really wants to see you talking in the office behind a desk all the time. You got to be doing, especially nowadays, because everyone has a personal brand. So you got to figure out a way to stand out, and that's doing interesting things that are, humans have the attention of a goldfish or less nowadays. Like, you literally have 6 seconds or less to catch someone's attention as they're scrolling through whatever it is, Instagram, Facebook, etc. So you better be able to hit them with something cool right up front.
I think something to remember with what Jon's saying is that, just like Trevor said, you have to be doing well by people, be doing the right thing constantly. And whenever Jon says doing cool shit, it's because you're actually doing it. You're not doing it just to film. And I think a lot of people will stray away from wanting to post what they're doing and what their business is doing because they feel like the environment is so saturated. But we're just at the beginning of podcasting. We're super excited about this being our 100th episode, and everyone makes fun of podcasts being the most saturated market. But presidents were interviewed on podcasts for the first time in the selection cycle. We are at the very beginning of this form of media. So it's really, really exciting. Social media is brand new. I mean, if you look at the history of the human race, we are at the very beginning of all of this. So get out and post. And then it is that delicate balance, which kind of becomes a pain in the ass of the infotainment, I think is what Hormozy coined it, of where we could all be talking heads and just give you advice, that we read from books, or we could go out and do really fun stuff. I see everyone on here doing cool stuff all the time, and being able to make it palatable to the audience it's going to resonate with is really huge. But also remember, y'all, that not everyone is going to find your content palatable. So focus on the quality of the information that you're sharing, and then make everything else fun beyond that. But Anthony, what about you? What are your thoughts on branding, business, personal?
Branding helped me a lot, especially when I was really just getting started, because it brought a lot of deals, JV partners and stuff like that early on, because a lot of people weren't doing land the way we do it in the Phoenix area. Everybody was wholesaling houses and not a lot of people were doing land. So when I was able to establish myself as a expert in land, it really helped to drive a lot of deal flow to us. And one thing that I'm big on is speak to what you know and nothing else. Like, if someone comes to me and says, hey, what's the ARV on this single family house in Paradise Valley, and it's a $3 million buy and it could sell for $7 million, that's not my expertise. So I'll gladly say, hey, if you want to know what the land value is, that's my forte. Outside that, I don't know the price per square foot to build luxury or renovate luxury right now. And so I've always stayed in my lane, and I'm not too prideful to say I don't know when I don't know. And building that credibility, I think, sometimes comes more when you say you don't know something than trying to be the master of all. And that's done really well for me. So I kind of situated myself as a land guy, but with a caveat. Like, we focus on infill lots, multifamily rezoning and entitlement, and some lot splits within an hour of major cities. We're not doing giant master plan communities. That's not our forte. So staying in my lane has been really helpful as well. And then just be authentic online with who you are and what you do. Like you said, not everyone's going to like your content, and if you're monitoring how many people follow and disfollow your page based on a post, you're going to get in this trying to please everyone stage, and it's just not conducive to the brand that you actually want to build.
Absolutely. Justin, what are your thoughts?
So I'm trying to think across the different brands for the different companies we have, and then the personal brand side of it. And so I look at that, and for social media with the podcast and then taking the personal brand side, I look at being who you really are, not trying to curate this character. And you can see through that pretty quickly when somebody curates a character and they want to play a certain role, but them on a personal level, and you see that, hey, they've got 70,000 followers all of a sudden, and they want to play this character, but you look at the followers and they're 13-year-olds in Brazil, and you're like, okay, what is really important to you? And so we saw that a lot with one of my supplement companies, where we have influencers come in and they had affiliates, and we'd look at their following And I would have a mom of 2 that was fit, that had 300 following, and she'd sell more than a chick that had 1 million followers that would just post bikini pics all the time. And you're like, okay, so what is the engagement your brand's going to? Who's the avatar you're actually hitting? For me, my personal stuff, like on Instagram, I don't really talk about land on my personal Instagram. I talk about my family, like cars and riding, playing soccer with my kids and doing that, because that's who I am. Now, could I turn that into land a little bit? Occasionally I'll throw a land post in and I'll get feedback on that. Like, oh man, that's going good. Or this is going well. Our other brands, they still push out what they're supposed to, but it ties back to like, okay, hey, if you're going to deal with this guy, he's pretty genuine. He's not looking for clout in any way. It's just, you're going to get a straight, honest answer. And so I think you have to decide what that brand looks like for you, like who you want to be, and be true to yourself in that regard as well.
That's a great answer. And I think it's kind of around the principle of, 100 or 1,000 fans that are actually engaging, as the person that buys 1 million followers and gets, 4 views on their reels, because, it's just not authentic.
Yeah.
Logan, you sort of answered the question, but want to hear your thoughts and add on to it.
But touching on something Justin said, and tying it together with finding a mentor, find someone that's got the life you want and follow that person's every step, because we can stand on the shoulder of giants just by mirroring something we've already seen. Like, I've always looked up to Trevor and Logan, Jon, all doing amazing stuff. And you see the family side of it too, that's like, they're living the life I want. I would love to have a happy, healthy family like that. I would love to follow these guys and figure out what they did. I remember meeting Logan at a wedding, and he was so humble and gracious with his time, had his wife with him, and just seeing the family dynamic and I was like, this is somebody that I want to emulate in life and kind of steer my life towards. Same when I met Trevor and got to kind of get to know him better. You're like, these people are living the life I want, and they lay, a path for you to walk. And those are the kind of people that I look for if I'm looking for mentorship in the space, is, are they living the life I want? Now, if you want to follow the guy that's on FTX courses and crypto stuff, and they've got the Lambos, and you're 21 and you're like, that's what I want to do, follow that person. But if you're looking for something more stable, happy and healthy, there's plenty of people on this podcast to follow.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to be a snowflake and be your own individual person. You can follow the path. We're so individual already that if you see someone setting the direction for you, why not follow it and, iterate for your own life, just like we've talked about with iterating the business. But Logan, back to you to add on to it.
Yeah, I got distracted. I was going back asking, what was your original question again?
About branding. And you kind of answered it at the beginning, but following up to creating the personal brand and business brand.
I think that's the important part. I did realize early on that folks would say, we think you're a pretty decent guy, and we think that there's not a lot of show or flash. And there are times where I would see other guys with flashy things specifically. I thought, well, if I have to build a big brand, I need to do those things, but those are not things that I'm interested in. Like, I don't buy super expensive cars, and, I just don't do the things that are really flashy. So I thought that would hold me back. But I did hear a lot of feedback that said, man, we think you're legitimate. We think you're honest. We think you're a good dude. And that has become part of the brand in a way that I'm not aware, but it's happening because people give me that feedback. So I think that's how it's developed, but it's really just being who you are. And not everybody is probably designed to build a brand. Like, there are people that are unable to build a really good business. They're not building something that when you share about it, it's interesting. So they might not be the right person to build that, but I'm just lucky enough that I built something that really worked, and I talked a lot about it and people wanted to hear about it. But if I didn't build something that people were interested in hearing, or they didn't want to hear about what I said, well, then I wouldn't have had a followership occur. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it kind of has to do with who you are. Maybe some people are cut out for that. Now, I know Grant Cardone, like, that guy's on the way other end of the spectrum, like way up there, but I'm happy with the size of what I've got and what it gives me. So
yeah, not everyone should build a personal brand, in my opinion. Some people, it literally comes down to personality and genetics in a lot of cases. Like, some people being on social media creates them a lot of anxiety, for instance, and so they should not be on social media. I mean, there's so many different cases and personalities, and there's literally genetics and environmental factors that come into play. So if not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur, if I'm being honest. Not everyone is definitely not built to build a personal brand. Not everyone is built to be a land investor. So it's, don't think like this is for everybody, but there's a lot of utilities to it for sure. But you have to do what's right for you.
Yeah, I think
I just tell people to go try it, and if it works out, good. If it doesn't, we'll do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
There's plenty of other shit that I tried that didn't work, so I did something else. This just happened to work.
Well, so many people tie their self-worth to whether they succeed or not. I know I've been guilty of that in the past, is, oh, if the deals are falling apart, I must be bad. And being able to separate yourself from the role that you're in is huge. And I wish I could take credit for that, but someone much smarter than me put that in a book once. And that's something that I took to heart, is just because you're failing at your role doesn't mean you're a bad person.
John, are you saying that I have the genetics for a podcast? Is that what you're saying, and not social media?
Non-video.
he was talking about me. I was like, damn, is
bro.
radio?
There it is.
You gotta, I don't know, maybe you're more of a radio guy, Trevor. I'm not sure.
You're great.
Get you maybe a little bit better video, then you could, all the avenues will open up.
It's a potato.
Yep. Well, guys, I know we're already a little bit over, so we just want to wrap up here with parting thoughts, advice, anything that you have to say to our audience here before we end the show. Trevor?
Man, entrepreneurship is tough. Real estate is tough, but it's awesome, right? I suggest if you're going to get into this, like, listen to this podcast, hook up with some of these guys that have programs. More importantly, surround yourself with people that are just like Anthony was talking about earlier, right? Are where you want to be. And then don't complicate the damn thing. Just do it, right? Just like Justin said, right? Buy low, sell high, buy at the right price, add value, sell up, still below market, right? Get the shit done, fix problems like Logan does, whatever that is, but don't try to do all of it at one time, right? Spend 6 months, I would say a year. And like you said, like Mason was talking about, keep a job, man. Like, if you really want to, if you're brand new, keep a job, make an extra $150,000, $200,000 a year. Then you can decide what you want to do after that.
John?
Yeah, there's a million different ways to make money in this world. It doesn't have to be in real estate. It doesn't have to be in land. If it is, this is a small community. Get to know these people. But look, 2025 is here. As we're recording this, there is a lot of opportunity out there. I don't know what you're interested in, why you're listening to this podcast, what you got going on, but literally the sky is the limit as far as I see it. As we go forward here in the future, there's a lot happening, a lot taking place. Be able to adapt, wake up every morning, learn something new, and I think the world can be your oyster.
A lot of boomers selling their land. Anthony, what do you say? What do you have to say?
You just have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice for the life I want? What helped me was I got rid of Netflix at night. I got rid of music in the car. I replaced it with podcasts, educational, started reading at night. And it sucked. Everybody else is going to the lake and having fun. And here I am reading another book. But now I'm living a life that they all wish they could live because they weren't willing to sacrifice. So it all came down to, what are you willing to sacrifice for that life you want? I imagine everybody on here went through that same struggle as they got started of, you're not having the fun. We're not going on the skiing trips and then going to the bar and doing all that fun stuff. But now everyone on this call could go take a month off and it wouldn't affect their bottom line. They could go live a life that they want with travel. I mean, we're all probably a little psychotic, and I don't know if any of us could be away for an entire month without getting some sort of deal going. But that's one thing that I took to heart, and I try to pass forward, because it comes down to just the sacrifices must be made.
Logan, what do you think?
One of my favorite things that I've heard in the last couple of years online, and it just continues to mean more and more to me, is no one knows what they're doing. Some of us do it anyway. As we guide people in our coaching program, I mentor people in my business. You know, there are times where I'm charged with being a leader a lot, and it's not because I'm like the best leader with all the leadership skills and whatnot and charisma to boot, but it's really just, I'm not sure what's happening, but we're going to get the most information we can, and we're going to trust our gut, and we're going to head that direction. We're going to do it the best we can. And we've been lucky that does a lot, and we've gotten a lot out of that. We've been right more times than we're not. So I tell people, dude, just go after it, man. You might fuck some things up, but just go do it. And if it all works out, you were meant to do this. And if it doesn't, well, go do something else.
Yep. Justin, you want to finish us off?
Man, everybody had great advice there. I think the only thing I would add is if you're doing this because you heard about how much money you can make and all these things, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're going to have to fall in love with some other part of this. And it may be whatever you're really good in your corporate job, and you take it into your entrepreneurial space. But if it's just the zeros and the commas, then find something else to do. You're going to have to just keep it simple and have realistic conversations with yourself. I think all of us have sat there at night and said, hey, am I really this good? Or what am I really good at? And how do I double down on that? And you have to be honest with yourself. And it's humbling at times because there's a lot of things that none of us know. But as to Logan's point is you have to be okay with moving forward and being decisive in what that decision is going to be and having to bet on yourself. So those would be my biggest advice.
Well said, Justin.
Well, guys, thank you very much for being here. This was an awesome 100th episode. Until next time.